public hearing to consider a rate increase for the Consolidated Water District.
Want to open the
I'd like
hearing?
to open the hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So, good evening, Supervisor Feiner, Town Council members, residents of Greenburgh watching, and those here in the audience tonight. For the record, my name is Victor Carosi. I'm Commissioner of Public Works for the Town of Greenburgh. The Town Board recently opened a public hearing for comments on a proposed water rate increases of the Greenburgh Consolidated Water District Number 1. Ahead of opening this matter for public discussion, I've prepared a presentation of slides to provide some background information for this council and for the residents of the Greenburgh to understand the water district finances, our recent actions, and our future plans and direction, all of which are the result of careful and consistent attention of the Water District Advisory Committee. Just for background, the Water District Advisory Committee was created by the Town Board about 7 years ago to determine appropriate water rates, address existing and future concerns of the town's water supply, educate ratepayers of necessary and vital infrastructure requirements, and to help provide for a safe and sustainable water supply and delivery of infrastructure for the future needs of the town. To that end, this presentation will address several of those points. Okay. To begin with, the town has contracted with a financial company called Raftellus. Their company focuses on utilities and public sector organizations, and we have contracted with them to help review the water district's finances and provide financial guidance to help align the district's planning and financials. The following slides will show an overview of the current district's financial needs and an outlook towards future years. Those that have been following the water district finances and approach may notice this is slightly taking a different approach than my past years, as we're looking at a commitment for capital planning and for future and financial planning for our further improvements. Next slide. Was there a slide before that? There should be one. Yes. So, no problem. So, as this is a public hearing for water rate increases, let me start off right off with what we're projecting. We're looking at an 8.5% increase for the remainder of this year, 2019. With our financials, we're able to project future rate increases to help maintain the financials necessary to support the ongoing capital improvement plans of the district. Our projections are for an 8% increase the following year, 2020, a 7.5% increase in 2021, and a 7.5% increase in fiscal year 2022, and then tapering to a 5% projected for fiscal year 2023. Overall, this is an approximate 28% increase. Why and what is driving this? In two words, capital improvements. Next slide, please. Here is a picture of some of the capital improvements of the district. This is showing two of our water tanks. The one on the left is actually the same as the one on the right. This is our Birchwood water tank, and it's showing the painting of the before and interim actions of the water tank painting. These are approximately $3 million projects to completely renovate the old water tanks. The work involves interior cleaning of the old paint, bringing it down to bare metal and recoating the interior of the tanks, reapplying a new epoxy conditioning to the inside of the tanks, repairing the steel, and then repainting on the exterior of the tanks. These projects take almost 1.5 years to 2 years to complete.
How long does the paint job usually last?
We are under a contract with a company that's guaranteeing these paint jobs for at least 10 to 15 years. And under that agreement, if there are any problems, they are obligated to come back and repaint these. Historically, we've had one-year guarantees, and the paint jobs have only lasted a very short time. This is a new approach that we took and was brought to this board a few years ago with a long-term maintenance program for all of our water tanks. And we believe that by entering into this contract for long-term agreements, we'll maintain the tanks in a much better condition longer term than they have in the past, and will help these tanks to continue for a very long-term life.
So, Victor, tell the public what the water in the tanks is used for.
Well, the water in the tank is actually, it's drinking water. It's also storage, and it's also used for fire protection purposes. The water in the tanks is constantly fluctuating. What happens is as we pump water, it brings its weight into the tank, and then the tanks serve a purpose of helping to stabilize the impacts of the pumps turning on and off by offering a cushion. They also provide pressure because the tank is elevated above the ground, so that provides pressure to our water system. And it provides the needs for any fire flows or any peak supplies that we might need, so the tanks would provide that extra cushion. So there are a number of actions that the tanks provide to a water system.
And how does water get into the tank?
The water actually, these tanks are connected directly into our water system. Within each tank is a pipe that's connected to the distribution system. Some of them are connected by larger diameter pipes, and it's part of the overall network of piping within our system. So they're connected directly into it, and the water in these tanks floats. So actually, they're not open to the air, but they're provided with a mechanism to allow air pressure to naturally work in the tanks and provide system pressure for our residents.
Thank you.
We have 6 water tanks in the district. Thank you. Next slide. This slide is also showing other improvements. This is a picture of some water main replacements that we've done. This one happens to be, I believe, on Chelsea Road. Again, it's an area where we did some extensive water main replacement this past couple of years. Next slide. And here is a picture of other capital improvements where we're doing what we call cleaning and lining of the water pipes. On the left is an example of one of the access holes that are dug to gain access to the water mains. And on the right is a sample of a water main that has a cement lining applied to the inside. And what this does is the older pipes were cast iron. And what this does is it coats the interior of the pipe with a cement lining to protect the pipe and reduce corrosion and rust within the pipe. Overall, the district operates about 200 miles of water pipe. We have 2 water pump stations, 6 water tanks, as I mentioned. But unfortunately, our system is aging. Some of those water tanks were constructed in the 1920s, and some of our pipes are nearing 100 years old. Our main pump station, our Knollwood pump station, was constructed in the 50s. However, we are now on a path to improve for the future. To date, about $7,755,000 has been reinvested into the system to rehabilitate 3 of our water tanks. Actually, the 4th, which I showed you the picture of, that one is just about ready to come back online. We have an additional $3 million that we've invested that's replaced 7,800 feet of water mains. We've already invested $3 million to clean and line 16,800 feet of water main. And we have additionally 39,100 feet under design and construction for this year and into the next 2 years. We have also been lucky in receiving grants. We have sought and been awarded $9.6 million in grants over the past 2 years to help with these infrastructure improvements. In total, the town has so far invested $13.8 million into our system over the past 6 years. Next slide. Yes, thanks is good. Thank you. Looking ahead, we are nearing design completion and expect potentially a fall construction start for a 30-inch water transmission main to link our 2 water pump stations. This project will involve installing over 6,000 feet of new water main from our Rumbrook pump station to our Knollwood pump station. Will involve installing this 30-inch main underneath the Sprainbrook Parkway. This extremely important project will provide a secondary source in the event of a problem with our main pump station, and we're at projected cost of approximately $12 million. Absent this new pipeline, the town supply could be interrupted by a system failure at our 1950s Knollwood pump station. But looking into the future, 2023, we anticipate rehabilitating our older pump station when this new secondary pipe comes online. Next slide. Challenges face their district. These include our limited account growth. We don't foresee any great changes that would increase our user base. And interestingly, we also see a year-over-year slight decrease in water consumption. As our revenue is tied to water use, a decrease in consumption does result in a decrease in revenue. Unfortunately, costs for everything continue to increase. The water we purchase, the electricity we need to run the pumps, chemicals we use to treat the water, and all of our other supplies and equipment are continue to increase. Next slide.
What's O&M?
Operation and maintenance. Now, I do understand that any rate increase is difficult. The challenge we have is to maintain the district's financials and infrastructure integrity while understanding the need for affordable water. As I said earlier, the capital needs are the drivers to a great degree with the projected water rate increases. Looking at the next 5 years' capital project funding, you can see our infrastructure investment plans from $6.5 million this year, $7.4 million next, and then a slight dip in 2021, and then a large anticipated expenses going into 2022, 2023, where we forecast the rehabilitation of the Elwood Pump Station. This 5-year capital plan and rate model development is shaped to offer predictable rate changes over the 5 years and to temper the use of general obligation bonds with cash reserves when appropriate. Next slide. All this infrastructure improvement does put pressure on the district's cash flow, with debt service payments projected to increase annually to over $4 million by 2023. Absent proper planning and managing, the district will be unable to meet its payment obligations by fiscal year 2023, underfunding these needs by approximately 26%. Our financial team advises an acceptable target to provide sufficient financial health for our district is achieving net revenue of 105% compared to the obligated debt payments. The proposed water rate increases do provide that level of funding, assuring the district meets its financial obligations. Next slide. Overall, with the proposed increases, the financial health of the district will remain solid, even with projected $54 million total investments in capital expected by 2023. The cost of water to a typical resident, as reflected by the median household income, is about 0.4%. We will maintain at least 90 days of operating funds and keep our debt coverage above the targeted 1.05%. Of course, this is all projected, and we do intend to review annually our financials, but as of today, this is what we anticipate for the next 5 years. So, what and how will the proposed rate increase impact your water bill? If your water bill is around $53 per quarter or every 3 months, you can expect it to increase by about $4 in total over those 3 months. For a larger residential customer, it may increase by about $8. I think the next slide would be good. And some of our largest residential users may see an increase of $15 over the 3-month billing period. We have projected rate impacts for our typical customers over the next 5 years. So as you can see, even with the capital investment plan to improve water pipes, rehabilitate our water tanks, and rebuild our main water pump station, for our large water user, over the next 5 years, they will see a quarterly increase of $73 compared to the current payment, while a more conservative user will see that water bill change by only $22. Of course, these are estimates, but they are based upon an analysis of several years of water consumption data and compiled to reflect 3 typical water user categories. Next slide. Another way of looking at the rate impacts is shown here by each year. Again, a typical low user will see about $4.48 per quarter increase, $4.58 the next year, and so on. Next slide. Thank you. To keep this all in perspective, though, each district and community are different and have different needs. We do like to compare our rates to those of other districts nearby. with generally the same water source. So here you can see a typical monthly bill of 15,000 gallons consumption. By the way, this 15,000 gallons represents about 50% of all our water users, and a monthly bill is about $30.79. This would increase to $33.41. Looking at this chart, we still feel, with all these capital improvements, that we are still offering a high value to all our residents and customers. And next slide. And finally, if you're wondering, how is this money divided? Where does your water bill goes? I think this slide is helpful because it still shows that the single largest expense remains the cost to New York City to purchase the water that we supply to our residents, followed by the cost of the people that provide and maintain the service, our debt service, and then other operating costs such as maintaining our buildings, facilities, utilities, repairs, maintenance, and so on. With that, I do apologize for a longer presentation. I know it went a little slower, but if there are any questions that anybody have, I'm hopefully be able to answer those questions tonight, and if I can't, I will try to get back to you with any answers.
I just wanted to ask, New York City has been increasing their rates all over, and I'm wondering what percent of the rate increase, is based on the New York City anticipated rate increases. With more of a pass along.
Yeah. No, actually, I don't have that slide. I can't tell you specifically, but as the New York City's water costs are about 36% or so, based upon that last slide, it's a portion of that water rate. However, the rates at this point are being largely driven by our capital needs more than the purchased water increases from New York City, though those are a factor and do remain a singular large source of our costs. It's the increases that we're seeing are mainly related to the increasing capital debt that the district will be carrying for our improvements.
I live in the Suez Water District, which is different than the Greenburgh, but the rates historically have been less for Greenburgh. After, if this rate increase is approved by the town board, will our rates still be less than the private sector?
Yes, we've looked at bill comparisons of some of the neighboring utilities, and Suez would still be, a typical Suez user, we calculate at about $53 for the similar water usage, whereas a typical Greenburgh customer would be about $33. So we are still lower than that. Unfortunately, we are, our rates will be moving higher, but we still believe that we're offering a very competitive rate in light of the needs for our capital going forward.
And I guess they're going to be spending money on capital also.
They do, and they have a very extensive tariff. In fact, I know it's been in the newspapers a few months ago that they are also seeking an increase in what they call a tariff for their water rates, and it's largely capital-driven, from what I recall reading as well.
Now, is this graph based on the same volume of water being used, or is it the average of the bills for each of one of these different municipalities? It may be that some municipalities, they just use more water or less water. What is the baseline that links all of these together so that there is a comparison?
Yeah. The base on that is approximately 15,000 gallons of usage. And what we did is we took rates that were available to us and tried to recreate what a typical bill would be based upon the published water rates for each of these utilities. This is the numbers that were resulting. And for instance, like a Suez, I don't recall their rates specifically, but there are also the various surcharges and things, and that's what was compiled to create this, so that the basis of comparison is a consistent level of consumption, which is, again, 15,000 gallons for our purposes.
In one of your comments, you mentioned that you don't see our base expanding, but if we were to switch over to the billing based on the water bill as opposed to the fire district, we would be increasing our base. And is that being looked at? Is that currently being looked at by the Water Advisory Board?
The Water District Advisory Committee is currently reviewing the bill impacts should the town consider changing from a tax for fire hydrants to making a line item on a water bill, and they're examining what those impacts would be, and will be prepared shortly to offer a recommendation to the town board should the board choose to provide that alternative.
Victor, do you see any unusual increases by the New York City Department of Environmental Protection coming in the future? Because when they did all that construction up in Valhalla, it did increase that rate quite a bit. Do you see anything like that coming down?
We have not been advised of any significant large rate increases. The New York City DEP every year about this time, May, June, does provide an annual report of their system status, and there's always a forward-looking statement with respect to rate increases. I have not yet received that report for this year, but in the past it has not had a significant, meaning greater than double-digit increases. I know that they are also having many significant capital expenditures coming forward, but in our discussions, no one has said that we should be concerned for a larger than normal rate increase in the future.
Victor, a few years ago, you and I attended a workshop on water infrastructure repair grants provided by Governor Cuomo, and consequently, the town received a nearly $5 million grant. Have other grants been pursued to help offset the cost of water infrastructure repairs to taxpayers in Greenburgh?
Yes, actually, there are two different grant programs that we have been seeking. One is it's called WIIA, and the other is a sharing grant. I don't recall the specific title on those grants, but the town, that's where we were successful in applying for and receiving $9.6 million in grants. So we've been successful, and for that we're very appreciative of the state that provided that opportunity for us. So there was the opportunity. We followed through and have been successful, and we'll continue to do that, working with the Water Advisory Committee and our water consultants as well as our staff when we are aware of grants, and we will continue to be aggressive in that respect.
So with the connection of the East Rumbrook pump station to the Knollwood pump station, do you anticipate that these increases that we're looking at now will be tapering off, since we at some point dropped to 5% instead of staying in the 8% range? Is it at that point we believe that we'll be able to handle our debt service and without 8% increases?
That is what the projections are showing, is that at that point we should have enough of financial balance between the capital needs and the rate. Right now it's a bit of a ramp up to get there, but that is the ultimate goal, and that's projected to be accurate.
Any other questions or comments? Anybody from the public like to speak? No? Then this was a good presentation.
Thank you. And again, with respect to the water rates, the action before you tonight is for 2019. If this board would like to consider, would be the recommendation of the advisory committee that we adopt a 5-year rate plan, with the caveat that each year we will again re-examine that rate plan and make minor adjustments. But for the best financial health of the district, it would be advantageous if, as of January 1st each year, a new rate, as we just presented earlier, would be able to go into effect to achieve the most reasonable and stable environment of cash for the district. Again, recognize that each year we do want to come back and revisit, but these are based upon the projections of our capital needs going forward and based upon some generalizations as far as increases that we would anticipate on other operating and maintenance costs.
What I might suggest then is, since this is not supposed to kick in until August 1st anyway, and we have time for a meeting in between, is that we actually maybe continue the public hearing and notice it that it's not solely for a one-shot rate increase, And if that's what, if we get something from the Water District Advisory Group stating that they would like us to consider, you know, a 5-year plan for that, we could do that at the next meeting.
Happy to provide that, thank you.
Assuming it could be noticed in time.
Okay,
Would you maybe get me, like, you know, the copy of the statement that you read, and then, because I think that is good, and people, and the PowerPoints, and this way, you know, I could post that on the website so people could, you know, read it.
yes, I could do that.
Okay, that's good.
All right, thank you very much, and again, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and if there are any written statements, we'll
nicely
work on it.
done.
Thank you.
Do you want to move to adjourn it to?
So we're going to adjourn the hearing?
We're going to adjourn it for all purposes to the next meeting, which is on the 26th of June.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.